it was on the walk out from there that it was probably the lowest, because I was just like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, what, you haven't fucking heard, it was like day whatever. It might be day 5 or 6 then. Most days I was doing, at least sort of like 2,000 to 3,000 vertical feet gain. And just, most days were sort of like 10 to 12 Ks, like just big days on the mountain. And, I'd walked into this spot that was going to be my sanctuary for a night, but, it was going to be my oasis.
Yeah.
And, went to this spot and didn't hear any bugles. And I think the other thing that had gotten to me too was from where my camp was, I could see 2 other outfitted camps of dudes. And so it's like I've just walked into this spot, which is meant to be my hidden away spot, and I'm like, I can see 2 other camps.
Yeah.
And so 4 miles away. But the point is, like,
they're still there.
You go in back to get away from people, and I'm like, I'm seeing more people in the back country than I was in the front.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and so, and I just was walking out, and it was like the shittest rapid run down a mountain of just scree and shale and just like loose dirt and like dead full. And I'm all pumped because, I'm going to go shoot this bull. And then, walking back out of there, it was just, I was like, like, what are you doing? Like, why are you here? There's other people here. Like, you've just walked in. Like, what's your next plan? What are you going to do? Like, and, I had this moment where I was just like, righto, if you need to fucking sit here and like cry, or if you need to scream, or if you need to fucking whatever you need to do, you've got like 2 minutes to just get over whatever you're getting through. Like, it was just like a pep talk to myself to be like, okay, I acknowledge that you're having a shit time. Things aren't going your way. Like, you're giving it all. You're not getting the responses you want. You're trying to put it all together. You're getting, caught up. It's just like, cool. But it's like, I'm still an hour and a half solid walk uphill from camp. You need to get up early tomorrow morning and do this again. Mm-hmm. You need to eat. You need to, like, there's things that need to be done. So it's like, cool, I acknowledge, James. And I'm like talking to myself.
Yeah.
It's like, righto, self-aware now, like, and this is the thing. It's like, okay. And this is part, like, this is actually the first time I've spoken about it. I've told a couple of my mates and shit. And it's just like, so it's like you're walking out and I'm like tearing up being like, nah, fuck this. Like, I can't fucking do this fucking shit. It's going to kill me. Like, and that's the thing. Like, I'm confident in myself telling this and saying this because, like, I mean, it all came together. And I mean, that's the thing. Like, a lot of the guys on this podcast that are probably listening, it's like, oh, he's a little bitch, just pussy and stuff like that. And it's like,
no.
But the thing is, like, I mean, it's not even like water on a duck's back. Like, it's like anyone who listens to me talk on this podcast, and like, if they, like, I mean, listening to this podcast, I'm trying to pitch the emotions and what it was like, but it's like, unless you've done it, like Nick said, all this, not like that bit to me, what I just sort of said, but like Nick said, he's like, you just don't understand till you do it. And he's done that twice. And he's like, you just don't understand like how big the mountains are and like how sparse the animals are and like what they're like. It's like nothing like Australia. Like, and so like, that's the thing, like me sharing all these details, be like, oh, fucking got tired on the mountain and, didn't shoot anything and you got all sad. It's like, fine, man. There's a reason it's 1%. Like, go there and do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
I was, like, the only thing I can relate it to is walking around the hills and chasing red deer and just being owned on the hills when the wind's up or whatever like that. And it's frustrating as all buggery. And that's when you're out for 1 or 2 days, not when you've been out for a whole week already hunting and trialing every different space.
I think it was just the fact that it was just a combination of sleep deprivation, grind, sore, and like I said, I think it was purely because like I dropped down so far, so quick in excitement that like, and that's the thing, like, if I was experienced, I probably would have been like, hey, dropping down to that bench that quickly to try and catch the last 45 minutes of light probably isn't like you're probably better off sitting on the top of the hill, bugling and glassing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whereas I ran down this hill, got down there, and then just stomped my way back up. I remember I got to camp and had a, like, I mean, yeah, like I said, I took some time on the way out, getting out, and had a feed in camp, went to bed, and got up the next morning. And because it was so hot on the walk in, I'd actually drank a heap of my water. And so the next day, had my GPS. I was talking to my mate, and he was like, look, you need to drop down for water. But he's like, I dropped down halfway off the ridge to get to the level where the benches are, because it like sort of came up, had benches, and then like went up to the top where I was camping. Mm-hmm. And I probably should have camped halfway up the ridges and been on like camped on the bench and been a bit closer to water. But that's the other thing, like these mountains are like scree, shaley stuff on the top, and you're like, oh no, there's not going to be elk there. But then, like in the day difference between me getting my elk and going back in there, like a whole herd of elk had walked up and over into the next basin, like 250 meters from my camp, where you can just see like all these fresh tracks, smell elk, all this stuff, and it's just like, what the fuck? Like, you know what I mean? Different animals.
Just torment the hell out of you. Yeah.
Oh, well, it's just they move so much, and so because they like you'll see them on a bedding area, but or like a feeding area, but like I said, the bedding area is 5 k's away, and so like. There's a big difference of losing them between A and B, but so I dropped down, got on the benches and started bugling, walking around, found some nice spots and stuff, but just no response. And I looked on Onyx, and in the gully I saw that there was a big, probably the size of an like an acre like lake, and then off that there was about an acre field of grass, and I was like, I'm going to go there. And so I walked down onto it, got there at 12 o'clock in the middle of the day, and I sat there, and I remember Remy Warren's thing where, because I just listened to that many podcasts about elk hunting beforehand, and one of his things was like just making like if it's hot, because it was hot for a couple of days, he goes, if it's hot and it's early in the rut, he goes, they're around, but they might not be making noise. And he goes, you might find a meadow where you can see that they've been on. And he goes, they'll just probably come in quiet. And so I'm like, righto, I'm just going to start sitting here in the bottom of this basin. The wind's good, cutting down the gully. And I'm like, I'm just going to paint a picture for whoever's listening. And so I'm like, there was a heap of elk sign. I could smell elk. There was fresh rubs everywhere. There was shit. It was like the place that I'd found for the first and second meadow. And I'm like, there's elk working this. And I'm like, I'm just going to sit here. And I know I'm 7 hours from when or 8 hours from when I think they're going to come. But, you know, like there's no point me walking off, because I was planning on actually going further away. But I was like, there's no point me going, like, you know, sort of like you find it, you stay, whatever, what's the expression? Bloody, you don't leave elk to find elk. So I'm like, I'll just stay here. And anyway, so I sat down, and one thing that Remy mentions is, I'm just trying, like, I know I'm quoting the guys that I guess I listened to and spoke to. It's not like, no, I don't get any kickbacks, and these blokes don't even know I exist, but it's more like just pointing out references that I use and things that I learned from them, which then I felt and held
so valuable.
Yeah, exactly. And so one thing that he sort of spoke about was overcalling and stuff, and like, so I mean, what I actually did was I would do every 15 minutes, I'd do like 3 calls, just like pretending for elk, cows and calves and stuff to be talking to me. And he goes like, first I say, you know, oh, there's a group of elk on, like a herd of elk on the meadow. And so every 15 minutes, like, I can just do a couple of cow calls and sort of maybe a calf call or whatever. And did that. And then after every 15 minutes, I'd do a couple of them. And then after 2 hours, I was like, righto, you're going to introduce that you've found there's a bull's come in, but he's not like super full rutted up because it's not full rut yet. And you're just going to do, you know, a couple of small light bugles. And one thing I found super handy was when I was in service, I actually looked up and like really critically analyzed like how long a bugle, like they all have like a cadence to them. They all have like a like, and so what I sort of worked out was like I looked at like 100 different elk bugles, right? Just from location bugles to full like screaming bugles and stuff, and most of them went for about 4 seconds, right? So I'm like, I'm going to bugle for 4 seconds, and most of them went really like they didn't go like most bugles. If you listen to them, didn't go like, and then like they don't build up to a high, hold it, and go down. They go like they go 2 steps, but the transition isn't as smooth. Like it's like an intro, or most of the time it's just flat out boom, like at a 10 screaming and then drop off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They don't go like the whole like.
It's not a massive crescendo or anything. Yeah, exactly. They're just there.
Like, they go like intro for 0.2 of a second and then like full noise, like screaming, right? Like, and put emotion into it. And so I mean that's what I'd do. I'd just go 4 seconds and just absolutely toot it, and and then same thing, like a couple of elk calls, a couple of cow calls, try and like pretend like there's a bit of excitement, like a bull chasing cows or whatever on the flat. And I just loosely did that. Like there was some bits where I didn't call for half an hour or 45 minutes, and I'd do a sequence for a minute, and of like a couple of cows, a couple of bulls, like the bulls chasing the cows. Like you're trying and picture what you're trying to pretend that there's a bull. Like this is what you're doing. You're pretending that there's a bull 400 meters away. So it's like, what are you trying to illustrate to him?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
what's going to entice him to come in?
It's like playing Pictionary or whatever. It's what do you like, or whatever crappy games that I'm terrible. But yeah, it's like, what picture are you trying to display in his mind through your audio cues? Like, are you rubbing a tree? Are you bloody pouring water out of an Nalgene to make it sound like there's a bull pissing? Like, what are you trying to demonstrate? And so I guess that's what I was running through my head like all the time. And anyway, so the sun was like sort of setting, and it was getting to, I guess, that prime time. And I was in like I was underneath a tree, but I was in like a fallen down tree that was sort of like loosely decayed and stuff, because what I imagined was going to happen was I imagined that it got dark at like 8:20, and I imagined that at about 7 o'clock a herd of cows is going to walk in, and there's going to be about 10 cows, and the bull's going to be the last one, which is typically what you're going to get. Right? I'm walking into the meadow to feed, and the bull's going to be at the end. So I've got to have enough cover to allow 10 cows to walk past me on the game trail that I'm set up 25 meters on downwind from, right? So you need enough cover that those cows are going to walk past without busting you, but you need enough cover that you can shoot out of it when the bull walks past.
Yeah.
And I find fallen trees to be that perfect thing, because they don't look, this is how I see it. When you look at items, right? When they're looking across the land for predators, they're looking at items. Like they're like, that's a tree. That's that shape. Mm-hmm. That's a fallen whole lot of logs. And so they see that whole pile of logs as an item, but it's also a sporadic, random shape. You know what I mean? So it's like, I find fallen logs, whether it's like calling in reds, fallow, foxes, whatever, fallen logs are like really good.
Yeah.
And so I was sitting in one of them. And I remember I ripped a bugle, and like over the top of me, anyway, so from camp in the morning at like 5 a.m, before I left camp, I'd seen 3 torches leave one of the camps. So I was like, great, there's 3 dudes guys hunting in my basin. And one of the dudes had walked sort of half the direction that I was going, but we were like, I was probably 4 Ks away from him in a straight line, and we were both walking to our right, and I'd walked about, what was it? It would have been, from camp, it was 2.5 Ks of all downhill, but I'd sort of half side hilled it and then walked down. So I'm like, anyway, so at about 6:20 in the arvo, I do a bugle, and straight over the top of me, I get a bugle. And I'm like, this is my thought. I'm like, that's a dude. I'm like, that's definitely a dude. Like, I'm like, that's a dude. That's definitely a dude. You know what I mean? And I just remember thinking, you mimic like their level of activity and excitement. I'm like, well, he's just bugled me over the top of me. So I straight away, like 2 seconds later, like bugle over the top of him. Right. And so like 15 seconds has passed and all of a sudden this thing bugles again. But what it's done is, if you imagine, right, I'm sitting at a table. So this is how I'm going to describe it to you guys. And just say you guys are probably driving or sitting in the car or whatever you're doing, listening to this podcast. So you're facing at 12 o'clock. My wind is blowing at about 3 o'clock, right? So to my right shoulder. The first bugle was 12 o'clock and about 300 meters in front of me. 15 or 20 seconds later, it bugles at 1:30, but at a distance of about 150 meters. So it's covered like 150 meters in 20 seconds, like just sprinted. And I'm like, and then it bugled again. And I'm like, that's an out. Because there's no fucking way a dude could have ran that fast.
Yeah.
Like it's like the amount, how quickly it covered the distance. I was like, holy shit. Anyway, so then I'm like, this thing has cut the wrong way. And so what I did was I cut my right hand over my mouth and directed 2 cow calls out to my left. So out to 9 o'clock to try and steer him back from the wind to my left. And so I did 2 cow calls and he came sprinting in another about 60 meters. So now he's at about 70 meters or 70 or 80 meters. And what he did was he raked a tree twice. And in the time that he ran and got to 150 meters to when he got to 70 meters, I'm like, I'm in too much cover for how quickly he's running in. So I jumped out of the thick covered bush tree and walked around to the tree that I was sort of half under and stood up in front of it and made sure I had good shooting lanes, but was broken up vertically by the outline of the tree. But the important thing here was I was standing in front of the tree, right? Anyway, so then he came running in to 70 or 80 meters, went rake on this little sapling thing, and I went, yeah, again, and he came sprinting in from 70 meters, and as he went past a tree at about 50, because he was running so fast, I drew back. He came running through this clearing, and at like 20 meters, I went, oi, 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 and yelled out like at him, like full fucking yelling, because he was sprinting, like just fucking like
just the old Aussie bloke call, oi.
Oh, like, but I was like, oi, 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 like proper, like fucking yelling at him because he was
just going
sprinting in, right? And all I remember seeing was massive, like this big wide frame and like real prominent points and like a nice whale tail out the back. And I just remember looking at him and be like, you'll do. And that was my thought. I was like, yep, that's yeah, man, like that's, yeah, I was like, yeah, you'll do. Like that's a stoke. Like I'll be stoked if I get it. Anyway, so it comes sprinting in and yeah, oi, 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 and then it like puts on the brakes, and what ended up being like 16 meters or something, right? And it's sitting quartering on, and I just remember it like looked at me, and I just like settled the pin behind its front shoulder, and this is one thing I sort of did wrong, but it worked. It was quartering on like maybe a 45-degree angle, and I should have broken its front leg. But what I did do was put it behind the front shoulder. So I took out, when I cut him open, I took out one lung. And because I'd shot in the center of his body, I'd taken out one lung, his main like arterial and venous supply to his back end, and then, like a lot of his liver and stuff like that. But I remember seeing where the arrow hit, and this is, I mean, I've already sworn enough in this podcast, I can say it, but this was my thought. I was just like, you're fucked. Like, as soon as I shot him and saw where the arrow hit, I'm like, you're fucked. And then the thing popped into my mind. I still had the diaphragm in my mouth. And one thing that, yet again, Remy had said was, he goes, because they're such big animals, he goes, you don't want them traveling far after the shot, like purely just because, like I was saying about like the moose and all that stuff with like big blood volumes and buffalo and all those sort of things, like a mammal generally has between 6 to 8% of its body mass as blood volume. So if you're looking at like a 400 kilo elk in my circumstance, that's like 32 liters of blood, right? Like they can lose 20% of that before they go shock and die. So it's like, think about 3 2-liter containers of milk, right? That's how much blood they have to lose before they go into a shock and die. So if you think that's the thing, like, so it's like shooting them in good spots obviously helps. But anyway, that's just a veterinary twist for Friday night. But yeah, like, so like as soon as I hit him, had my little thought and then went, yeah, and he ran like 15 meters, stopped, looked back at me, right? And then just like sat there, stared at me for like 5 seconds and then just went and dropped.
No way. How good.
I was the happiest guy in the world, right? Yeah, and I was just, oh man, I was stoked, and I was like, it was just this massive relief, and then also, to be honest, a bit of fear, because the thing was, now it was like the meat part, and that was like, for me, I'd made this association where it was like meat and butchering equals grizzly bear. So I'd shot this thing. It ended up being, was it 620 or 720? Anyway, I think it was 620. I'd shot him.
So you'd sat there for 6 hours before you got any action, essentially. Even more. Yeah, 6 and a bit hours.
Yeah. And so a fun fact that I'll contribute to this story now was I'd carried in, I think it was, 5 days worth of food or 6 days worth of food, but I wanted to extend it for as long as possible. So I'd already started cutting calories. Mm-hmm. So on that day, all I'd eaten was I ate half my, like, I think I'd probably like a breakfast skillet or whatever. I'd eaten half of that. And then at lunch, I'd eaten the other half. And then I'd had like an Atlas Wild bar. And then I had my electrolytes and that was it. Mm. And so I'd really like taken a heap of calories out. Like I hadn't eaten any like jerky, hadn't eaten anything like that. Hadn't carried any of that. And so I got this elk and I then had to do this carry out, but I was like, my glucose and energy levels was just zero.
Yeah.
Like just non-existent. And anyway, so I got to butchering him and I'm messaging my mate and he's like, hey man, I just his work schedule's like fucked. And he's like, hey man, I'm actually at work still. He's like, I can't come. He's like, he works, like he does marketing and international stuff. So he's like, I'm not going to finish until 2 a.m. this morning. Right. So he's like, how about we carry it out? He goes, how about tomorrow you do a loadout tonight? And he goes, tomorrow, Arvo, we'll both go in there and we'll carry out the rest.
Did that make your heart sink a little bit? No,
I didn't expect him to be there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But my thing was, so butchering it was actually like, and that just comes from butchering more, animals. Like it's the same size as a fallow. It's just massive. So, like technique on how to butcher it is the same. And so, I get to work butchering it, front legs, back legs, sorry?
Were you going to like, are you planning on caping him or anything? Like you planning on getting a shoulder mount or anything? You're just going to get the meat out?
Yeah. Took some photos. And then even then, like the light was like fading. Mm-hmm. So didn't get a heap of photos. And I was really conscious of grizzlies. Like I was like, oh, fuck, there's a dead animal now, which means that apparently in James's mind there's going to be a grizzly here in 2 points. And like the thing I think too was I'd actually seen a fair bit of bear sign all around the place. And there was fresh bear sign on that meadow from the previous days. So that was just weighing on my mind a bit, being like, look, there's already bears occupying this area. It's late at night. And there was a couple of times, like that's when I actually took the revolver out of the bag. It wasn't a revolver, it was just a pistol, but took the pistol out of the bag. I had the bear spray on, like in my pocket. And there was a couple of times that like I heard twigs snapped And because I'd had an ordeal, I think I put it up on Instagram, where I was butchering up a pig's carcass and I heard a twig snap and looked up above me, and there was 2 wild dogs sitting on the rocks like a couple of meters from me, watching me butcher this thing. And I'm like, well, fuck, what's to say that like a big grizzly doesn't just like walk in and then like, and because that's the thing, I'd had a couple of sticks snap, and I did full like head spins, like come up with the fucking bear spray like already in my hands, just like a bear to be on me, and they'd just be like me looking around like like, and just nothing to be there. But that's the thing, because you're like, it's like you're limited to your torchlight and you're down doing a job. And so like there's, you know, you're physically drawing attention to yourself, and then, you know, there's meat. So they're smelling the meat going like, oh, cool. Like that's where it is, you know, like
literally.
And,
that's going to help me survive from now.
Yeah. Like,
I don't care what you are. I want that meat.
Oh, that's exactly right. Like, and because they're not hunted there, they don't, that's what they were saying. Like the guys were saying that in Alaska and stuff, because grizzlies get hunted, people carry pistols not to shoot grizzlies. They just carry pistols because if they see a grizz, they just go get hunted. They associate gunshots with humans and hunting, and so they all leave. Whereas in Montana and that, like people, they like in rifle season, they associate rifles and gunshots with like a dinner bell setup.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, someone just shot an elk for me to go and eat. And then you can't hunt them. So they're like, oh, cool, that's my dinner. Like, you know, and they can't do anything about it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Like, serving up.
You can try and push a bear off it, but you can't shoot the bear just for taking your meat. And then like, if you kill a bear, you fully call the game warden in, and it's like a full investigation. Like you need to strongly be able to justify. Like if you shoot a bear in the back or in the arse, you're getting full prosecuted for it.
Yeah.
Like if you because it's showing that it's going away. Whereas like if you shoot one front on, and you can say like they'll do full forensic, like they'll chop a dudes into there to look at the forensics and stuff. And be like, righto, you have to explain to them, righto, it bluff charged me at 100 meters, and then and then it ran back, and then it came back, and then it bluff charged me into 20 meters, and then and then I was concerned for my life, and it bluff charged me again, and I shot it 3 times at 5 meters. You know what I mean? Because it's like I was concerned with my life. But if you shoot one at 40 meters, like you'll get in trouble for it.
Yeah.
Like you know what I mean? Like it's not like you need to have a full justifiable reason for shooting it, because it's like they take it very seriously, which is good and bad. But
definitely, I put a story up just yesterday about that. There was a big grizzly just charging this dude, and they travel so fast, dude. And this guy's got a rifle, he's holding it up, and like I would have shot it 3 times over, but it came into like 10 meters and then runs off. You're like, holy shit! Like it's terrifying.
Ran off and then turned around and like came back to look at him, and I was like, oh.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I saw that. But yeah, so that's the thing. So I'm freaking out. I had I bought big Alaskan meat game bags to like hang my food, and I still don't know how to do this. Actually, that's what I'm going to say. Look up. I haven't done it yet. So it shows how good I am as a human. But go online and watch a YouTube video of someone hanging a quarter in a game bag from a tree, because it's fucked. Right? So it took me about an hour and 45 minutes, if not less, to quarter out the front legs. I took neck meat because my mate wanted neck meat. I took the ribeyes, I took the back straps, I took the back legs, and I cut the back legs off at the hock at like a there's like a boning technique where the hock actually has 2 joints in it. So if you cut the lowest joint, then you still get like the Achilles tendon and you can hang them.
Yeah.
The technique that I did, but you lose all like the lower leg bone, or like just bone where there's no meat. So that's how I had all my bags. So I had in one bag I had front leg, back strap. The other bag I had front leg, back strap. Another bag I had neck meat, ribeyes, and then the 2 quarters. And so I had just my hunting gear for the day, and I was like, I'm going to carry out the 2 4 quarters and 2 back straps worth of meat. And anyway, it'd been raining. It started raining as well. Once I'd killed my bull, sorry. And I had 2,500 feet of vertical gain and 1.5, like a mile of just pure up to get back to camp. And that might not sound like much, but I promise you that most dudes and girls would struggle to walk that with a 10-kilo pack on.
It's like a 1,000-meter vertical that you're talking about, plus then doing that for a mile. Like, that's huge.
Yeah. Well, I think it was, and that's with like deadfalls and stuff. And the thing that probably killed me the most was there was extreme deadfall, or it was scree and shale.
Mm-hmm.
So I started trying to walk up through. So I'm cutting forward here a bit, but I corded it all up, put it all in bags, and then carted it. And what you've got to do is you've got to think, okay, well, the sun's rising in the east, so I'm going to hang my stuff like on a, northwest facing slope or something like that, where it's cool and shady, and it's not going to get predominant sun. And I'm going to hang it, but I'm also going to hang it at least 200 meters downwind of the carcass. So they're not like upwind of the carcass, downwind of the carcass.
Yeah.
So it's they're not, they find the carcass before they find the upwind of the carcass.
Upwind,
Jesus.
Yeah.
So they find the carcass before they find your meat, right? Because you want to be like eat, because that's what they want. They just want like the guts and shit of it. They bury it and roll in it and sleep on it and all the rest of it. So you want to have your meat. Just to emphasize that one more time, your meat hung in a tree upwind from the carcass.
Yeah.
So I found the perfect spot, carried all the meat there. It was all good. My issue then came with hanging the meat. So just throwing a rope over a tree and tying that around the game bag and trying to pull the meat up. You got to pull it up at least like 3 meters off the ground. Did not work. It's a fucking shit show. So then what I ended up doing was I put the meat in my backpack, and then I climbed the tree, and then I would tie the knot above me, and then I would unclip my backpack off my waist and then unclip the backpack from the meat. And I did the first lot of meat, like the first quarter, and it sort of half worked. And then the second quarter, I had it hung, and I was like unstrapping it from my bag, and the branch that I was standing on snapped. I went falling out of the tree, but I was lucky enough that I like grabbed my bag and backpack where it was tied up, half tied up when I fell. And so I ended up falling like halfway out of the tree, landed on a branch like halfway across my back, and ended up just like half lying, like hanging almost like a fucking stunned mullet across this branch, across the middle of my back. And so that caned, like, it was just excessive amounts of pain. And it had just taken me so long to get it, like, try to do it right. And so I was just like, fuck it. And so that meat stayed. I ended up just walking over and tying the neck and back strap. I'd cut the head off, and I literally just threw the head on like a big pile. And I'm like, they're not going to want the head. And, so I just like had half hung all my meat, and I was like, I was just going to start walking out of here because I'm in like so much pain already. End up popping like a heap of Nurofen, heap of Panadol. And I was like, this was already going to be like the worst walk out, let alone like grinding it out with like an already bad back.
Yeah.
And, so I started off carrying out the 2 back legs and 2 front legs boned out and 2 back straps. And I reckon it would have weighed, probably with my day stuff in it, probably close to like 45 kilos.
Mm-hmm.
And, I started walking out, and because we'd had all the rain, I couldn't walk up the deadfall because I just couldn't get my feet high enough over it, given the incline. And I was just so weak and so like mentally drained. And I remember I left the hanging meat and my skull at 11 o'clock at night. And I ended up walking about 400 vertical feet with the 2 back legs. And I was like, this is fucked. I can't do this. And so I took one out and hung it in a tree. because I ended up walking up the scree, but I was walking up scree really because I had no option, but I was just so slippery that I like nearly snapped my trekking poles at one point, which I've done before in New Zealand. I slipped over so many times and just bashed my legs and like wrists and everything, just like falling over. And yeah, so it ended up taking me 5 hours to walk out, and it was just a grind, like just. And honestly, probably what helped me and saved me was, halfway up, I just got my phone out. I don't know why. It was like, I remember it was like 1 a.m, and just started playing some music, and just I think it just helped to make a rhythm and like get myself out of my head and just like put on some bloody country tunes and just started thumping away and I just do it. And then got to camp at 4 a.m. I remember I walked up to my food bag because I hadn't fucking eaten, and I got like all the chocolate that I could find. All the chocolate. I had a heap of electrolyte diffusion from this and just a normal electrolytes, because that was probably the only time that my legs were really sort of crampy hurt sort of thing, because I neglected my body. Like it was, you don't put fuel in a car and what happens, you know? And so, like for that day, like, I mean, I was normally trying to hit a heap of calories. And like I said, I wasn't really counting, but like that day was just like, it wouldn't even been enough for someone that was working in an office, let alone someone that carried out, an elk and done all that stuff. And I mean, I know I'd just been sitting a lot of it too, but
it's very different at the end of the day when you've already used up all of that, like whatever stored energy you've had from the day before.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You've got no reserves, and your body's like, you end up using more anyway because your body's trying to repair from the previous like insults and injuries that you've done the last week. So, I remember I just grabbed a heap of chocolate, a stick of salami. I just sat there, ate it all, and then jumped in my tent. Went to actually, I think I spoke to my girlfriend. And she'd spoken to my dad, Nico, the day before. That night, and because that's the thing, the time difference was different there. And he's like, "Oh, I didn't think you were going to get one." Like, Dad, and I think he'd known because off the GPS I'd messaged like Nick Morton and my dad and my brother, just saying that I had got a book down, and messaged this other fella from the US to just let him know. And and then he was talking to him. He's like, "Oh, I think he might get it. Like he's been working pretty hard." And she's like, "Oh, I don't know. Like he just seems like all over the place, and he doesn't really, he's normally like pretty sort of focused and switched on." He's like, "Oh, I just like, And then I was like, "Yeah, I got one." She's like, "Oh, that's great, Anyway, so I'd been up for pretty well, like at that point, like almost 24 hours, and just went to bed and got up at 9:30 in the morning, and
just natural, or did you actually set an alarm?
No. I woke up 7:30, which had been like, because I was speaking to her for a bit, and then I think I spoke to Aiden as well, and he was like, like we spoke about for 15 minutes, or whatever. And he's like, "Mate, just you sound like I'm probably making as much sense right now in these conversations. Like, just go to sleep." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm just a bit G'd up and also like deliriously tired."
Just to give insights, it's past midnight for James right now as well.
Yeah. And I got up at 3 a.m. yesterday morning, and was on farm at 4, and didn't get home till 8 o'clock, and had dinner, and then started speaking to Matty. So you're welcome.
Exactly.
But yeah, so I went to bed, woke up the next morning, and then I was like, I just need to sleep. Got up, had a good brekkie, and what I should have done was packed out all of my camp in one go, but I ended up going and getting the meat, which I'd stashed, and carried my food out. And then, it was a 4-kilometre walk, but it was all downhill. And so instead of doing 2 trips, I should have just carried a really heavy load out in one, because it was all downhill and it would have been fine. But I ended up like carrying the load out and then walking back in with an empty pack. But even just walking uphill with an empty pack like hurt, because I'd like punished my body from the day before. And so I packed up camp and then walked out, and then that was fine. I should have done a heavy load. But ended up driving back to my mate's like, "Look, just come out." He goes, "You sound like you're wrecked. he goes, he got called into work when he was meant to have the day off. And so he's like, I can't get there to help you today. He goes, how about tomorrow we just do a big pack out? And, so we ended up getting up early the next morning. We couldn't find anyone else to give us a hand. And we were deciding whether to do this like 1.5K murderous walk out and then 4Ks downhill, or whether to walk it out through the front access, but it was like 15 kilometres, but it was all like semi-flattish. And we ended up going, hey, fuck it, we'll just do the murderous trail up and out, and even if we have to do it in 2 trips, we'll do that. And then what we'll do is we'll have another guy had agreed to meet us at the top of the hill for the 4K walk out. Mm-hmm. So we got down there, we hiked in, and he brought his 2 dogs, 2 golden retrievers, just in case, like for sort of bear dogs, I guess. And we got in there, had our pistols at the ready, and I was expecting to see an elk or like a bear sleeping and living on the grizz, but there wasn't, which was great. And then so what we decided was, we're like, hey, let's pack, rather than doing 2 trips, let's pack out all the meat and the skull and all this in one. And so I had a back leg and a back strap and my skull.
So you sat there and boned it out real quick and then got into that.
So we boned out the hind leg. While he went and got some water, I boned out the 2 hind legs, which took like 5 minutes. It was pretty easy. Like just a butcher, like pretty rough butchering job, because he was just going to bake and grind it. And he went and got some meat. So he took out 1 boned out front leg. Oh, that's right. So he took out 1 boned out front leg. Yeah, that's right. He took out 1 boned out front leg, a back strap, and the hind boned out. I took out a boned out back leg, neck meat, back straps, and my skull. So we both probably would have been carrying about 50 kilos on our back, if not maybe more. So, and he was a bit less prepared than me fitness-wise. And so what we ended up doing was we would walk until he got sore, and then we would sit. Mm-hmm. And we'd sit for a couple of minutes. We'd walk like 4, sometimes it was 20 meters uphill vertically if we had to go like over 3 or 4 dead. Because the thing that I was, because I was doing it midnight and 3 in the morning or whatever, I was limited to the assessments and judgment of what I could see with a head torch, which was on full ball. But the thing was, is like, if I didn't know that 50 meters to my right, it was a better trail. It was like, oh, you just keep walking up the scree, bro. Like, as long as you're going up, you're going the right way. Mm-hmm. That's what I was telling myself. Yeah. It's just like, whereas, we could be like, oh, hey, let's just skirt around this 100 meters and then it's easier, And so the walk out, I found it probably half as hard walking with that amount of weight on my back than I did walking out with, whatever I had on the first night.
Definitely. Makes sense, right? Middle of the night.
Well, I think the thing too was, it was just, I had energy. Mm-hmm. I was good, well hydrated. I had a day of rest at that point, and I had smacked up a heap of food. And anyway, by that point we walked out, and it was super slow. Like, it took us, I think we left there at like 1 in the arvo, and we didn't get to the top of the ridge, which is only a mile up. But I think it was like 8 o'clock at night or something like that.
Far out.
Right. But the thing, that's the thing, like, you're carrying, going, it could have been more. It could have been like 60 kilos. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how much, but it was like you could feel every inch of you was like just screaming.
Definitely. I've done a 1 mile walk with a barbell on my back with 60 kilos loaded. and that was hell enough. And that's on flat ground, like nothing bad. Let alone it was like uphill.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, and that's where it was, for me, easily I can say, like, I used to play AFL, played rugby, blah, 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 did all this shit, did some like long distance running, like all this stuff, whatever. It's like been to New Zealand, like done stuff, and it's like, for me, that walk out, even the first and second, like the second time, the first time was hard because I wasn't prepared. The second time was hard because it was just, there's no way around it. It's just hard. Like, you can't, like, it was easily the hardest thing I've ever done because that's just what it is. Mm-hmm. Like, And anyway, so we got out, and there was a guy who was my mate who I'd found at a trail, and he just said, "Hey, if you get an elk, let me know. I'll come help you pack it out." And I messaged him the night before, said, "Hey, we're doing it." He's like, "I'm at work, but I can meet you at the top of the hill and just help you on the carry out." And so me and my other friend were like, "Well, if we can get to the top of the hill, then it's all just downhill, and we can have like an easy walk out." We hadn't realised that my other mate had the backup, who was going to be like reinforcements, had back surgery like a year ago. And so we'd given him, what ended up happening was we gave him a boned out back quarter from my original mate, Michael, and I gave him my neck meat and back strap. So I still had my skull and my hind quarter. So we sort of loaded him up, but we're like, "Oh, look, it's only downhill." And then we started walking, and because of his back, he just like proper seized up and couldn't walk. And so like we're like, it's meant to be the reinforcements, but we're like running down this hill, and he can like barely walk. And anyway, we got halfway down the hill, and like we stopped and had dinner at the top because we'd stashed food and water like where I'd camped at the top and where we'd met him. And I explained the story to him, and we all had a yarn and all the stuff. So we probably left there at about 9 o'clock. Anyway, we start walking downhill, and we've gone like 1K out of the 4Ks, and he's just so slow. And we end up like sitting down, having a break. We're like, "Look, man, you okay?" Yeah, it's all good. And he was like a bit proud, which was good. You know, like you've got to have that drive and that push and a bit of grit in you. But it was also sort of like, "Look, man, we've been doing it for 10 hours. Like I'm thinking in the back of my mind, I'm like, you're meant to be here to sort of like save us, and like we could just walk right now." You know what I mean?
You're
like
meant to be the inspiration here, not fucking weighing us down.
Yeah, it was sort of like a bit like that, but in the same sense, I'm like appreciative that he's there, and you know, like I don't want to be like that prick and be like, "Come on, man, you know, come on." But yeah, like so, we started walking again. He got up and we started walking, and then we got another about a K down the road, and he just had to sit down, and I just sort of said to him, I said, "Look, man," I said, "just take," because I said to him, I said, "Just give us some of your meat," and he goes, "Nah," and my mate had sort of just walked off a bit, and anyway, so I said, "Just take your pack off." And he took his pack off. So I ended up taking back the neck meat, the neck meat, the eye fillets, and I got my knife out and I cut his hind quarter in half. So now I've got one and a half deboned out hindquarters. I've got neck meat. I've got the rib eyes and my skull. Mm-hmm. So at this point, I don't even want to hazard a guess at how much I'm carrying. And he's carrying, so I reckon I would have been carrying, it would have had to have been over, like we were saying, it has to have been at least over like 110 pounds. So like he'd be looking at between 50 and 60 kilos easy. Like, you know, people always estimate and like how much they're carrying. But it's like, I would have bet $1 million at that stage I had at least 50 kilos in my back.
Yeah.
Right? If not, it's got to be like it just had to be physically more. But anyway, so it was all downhill. I'm like, it's fine. If I'm carrying 50 or 60 and he's got 20. And then the funny thing was, like, I'm now again in the grind, like struggling, going from like, "Oh, this is great, Pixie's walking out," to like, "Fuck this shit, we're back here." And so I'm like grinding it out. And he's got 20 kilos next to me, like less than half the weight. And he's like struggling worse than I am. And I'm like, you can't complain to me now. Like, I'm like, just keep walking. Like, cause he's like, he's like, "I got to have a break." And I'm like, "Man, just like, please just walk." Like, anyway. And in the time that it had taken me to take this meat off his back and put it in mine and cut half the back leg off, and then chuck it in mine as well, Michael had walked forward about 200 meters, and he said that the dogs started barking and shit, which we couldn't hear because we were walking out on the creek. And what had happened was we were in like real thick, low, dense brush, and he didn't see what type of bear, but a bear had come out of the brush about 30 meters from him, walked across the track and was like walking away. But as it hit his scent, because we were walking out with the wind on our back, as it hit our scent, it smelled that we had the meat, and he reckons it like circled back. And that's when it's like pretty sus, because they're like not, like you can tell they're not afraid of you, but they can smell the meat.
Yeah.
And so he came, and then the dogs are like barking and shit, and he had his pistol on him and the bear spray, and he's yelling at the bear, and then the bear like pissed off. And so by the time we caught up with him, he was a bit like on edge, and he's had a heap of bear encounters. That was his like, I mean, we don't know if it was a grizzly or not, but he's had like 9 grizzly encounters, which is like, he should have been messed up by now, sort of thing statistically, but he's been pretty lucky and just managed them really well. And we ended up deciding that we were just going to fire like a couple of rounds of pistol shots into the like sort of creek bank, roughly where it had gone, like obviously not at an actual animal or not just to scare it. And then, that was pretty good because it was a bit of inspiration for him to boogie and get out. Old mate, he was helping us back up, carry it out. But, he helped us carry it out, and he ended up taking a lot of the meat home, and so did Michael. And, it was just – I think that's when for me it just sort of sunk in. It's sort of – I was like, oh, that's like – that's how you do it. Like, and that's it. Like, that's the end of it. Rather than like when I'd got it and still the meat was in there, I was like, it's not over yet. Mm-hmm. Like, it's still like you've still got a job to do. You can't like sort of take it all in, I guess.
What time did you guys end up getting home?
Oh, well, that was oh man, that was the thing. So we started driving home, and we're just say. I think it was like an hour or something, an hour and 15 minutes out of Bozeman, right? And we're like, we've just left the trailhead. Old mate's still there. He's just taking a minute. We're like, look, we got to get home. He's got to go to work tomorrow. Like, I need some sleep and stuff. So we're like, are you all good if we go? So we leave, and we're like driving, and then we're in the middle of nowhere, and this like cyclist at like 1 a.m. is riding a mountain bike on a road, and he like sort of waves us down, and we're like, you all right, man? And he's like, yeah. He's like, look, he's like, my car broke down, and then like someone gave me a lift to town, and like it was a fuel problem. So then a mate like came out and gave me some fuel, but it wouldn't start properly. But he's like, oh, I just don't want it. I don't know. There was some convoluted story about how his car was broken down and he didn't want it there, but he thinks it's going to be fixed now. So my mate looks at me and goes, what? And I'm like, man, he's like, what do you sort of like to say? Like, what do you think? And I'm like, fuck, we've got to take him to this car. Like, he's riding a mountain bike at 1 a.m. in the middle of nowhere. Like, if that was me and pulled over and didn't give me a lift, I would like, And anyway, so we gave him a lift, like, and it was ages. It was like 15 Ks back up the road, like all uphill in a mountain bike, freezing cold at like 1 a.m. And anyway, I gave him a lift, and he's like, oh, I just didn't want to leave my car there. It's like my baby and stuff. And we're like, what car is it? He's like, oh, it's some like, I think it was a Chevy or something like some. And neither of us are like car dudes or anything like that. And he's like, oh, it's my baby. And he's like, oh, he's like telling us all about this car. He's like, chicks love it, blah, 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 blah. Got back there, man. Honestly, fuck, I wouldn't have ridden 2 Ks to go and pick it up if it was bogged off the side of the road. Like, and this dude had ridden like 40 Ks from town.
In the middle of the night.
In the middle of the night, because he was a chef, it was like after his work shift, he decided that he wasn't leaving it there, so he was going to ride it there. And then he's got this like little car, which is like almost like a sedan Chevy. And I'm like, where are you putting that bike, bro? Like, did you think about that? Like, you're going to put it in the... He's like, oh, I'll figure it out. He's like, I don't care if I have to fucking like ditch the bike here and pick it up another day. He's like, I just didn't want my car here. I'm like,
what the fuck?
Like that. I'm like, that bike probably looks more expensive than that car. And like, you could tell it was like a nice, like, I don't know. It was just like, it was just neglected and old and just like, I don't know. I have no, like, I look at a car and I'm like, is it functional? Can it take me somewhere to go, like, do an adventure? Like, that thing was like, looked just, sketchy as. And, anyway, so then we dropped him off and then started our trip home again. So we didn't get home until like 2-3 in the morning or whatever. And then, went to bed. And then, that next day I got up late in the day and then went and drove like for an hour. Like I drove like 8 hours to go for a day and a half to go chase mule deer. And had some pretty close encounters, but just couldn't get it done. And we can talk about them because it was pretty short, but it was like, they're pretty much like hunting chital deer, but they're just super wide. Same tactic I'd use and got pretty close and got Oh, yeah, nearly shot one, nearly shot two, really. The first day, nearly shot like a forky that was bedded up, like just probably a year and a half old. At that stage, I was like, I've got a day and a half to get it on the ground, and like I just want to shoot something so that I can get more meat in the freezer for them.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I nearly shot a forky the first day, but just I think because I was just so tired, I wasn't thinking, and came over her eyes too quick, and he picked up my silhouette. And then same thing the next day, the best mule deer buck that I'd seen, found and bedded $3 in a bachelor mob and done a big loop to get the ring white and came in on him. And I'd seen him, and yeah, I was honestly about 3 meters away from a bush that was like 20, I think it was 22 yards that I ranged it afterwards, or 22 meters, sorry. And I was 3 meters away from the bush, and I'm like, if I can get to that bush and kneel down when he stands up, I'll shoot him.
Mm-hmm.
It's as simple as that. Like the wind's howling in my face. I said, it's a cold day. Like the wind's not going to get me. They're going to be bedded there, but after an hour and a half or so, they're going to stand up. This thing's like already broadside. I could just see his antlers in the grass. He was down sleeping. Like I could just see his antlers. Whereas another one was like, or two of them were facing towards me, but I sort of had a bit of sage breaking me up and stuff. But I just rushed it, and it was just dumb. It was just a mixture of like, I wouldn't even say excitement. Like I was pretty cool, calm, and collected, but just just sleep, probably deprivation. Hadn't really slept much. Haven't I'd just done that. I slept for a couple of hours that day. Still got up at like 8 o'clock or something, and then cleaned up all my gear and stuff, and then drove 8 hours. Didn't get into camp until like late at night. Met Michael's dad and sort of hung out with him for a bit, told stories until like midnight, then got up the next morning at 5 a.m. and went hunting again. And then the same thing, like Michael rolls into camp, you do it all again, get up 5 a.m., go hunting, and then like that was my last morning. And so yeah, I think like I'm super confident if I went back there and just spent a week on mule deer, I think if I found one that was I think I could get a pretty mature mule deer, probably easier than I could get an elk, to be honest, just because it's like very similar to chital hunting.
Mm-hmm.
Very, not to keep saying the same thing, but when Remy Warren used to have Cutting the Distance podcast, he did I think it was like, honestly, podcast 34. I know this sounds like super weird, but I've listened to it like twice. But it was like hunting bedded bucks or something like that. If you're hunting, if you want to learn how to hunt chital deer, listen to that podcast.
Okay,
that's
a good tip.
Yeah. Like if you want to learn the tactics of how to hunt a chital deer, listen to that podcast. And it's the exact same for mule deer. Like they're exactly the same. It's like, yeah, they're like where they bed is purely. I know it's like obviously, but it's like where their bed is purely on shade, and good shade opportunities is super limited for both these animals, like desert mule deer and also chital deer. So it's like you work out where the good beds are. They reuse those beds. You work on like, there's not a lot of cover, so you've either got to use topography or whatever to like get in there. You get in there, in the middle of the day when the wind's consistent. Get into a spot. You might have to wait 2 hours for it to stand up from its bed and then shoot it. But on these ones, I got in, and like I said, I was 3 meters off the bush and just rushed it. And one of the bucks saw me and they ran off, and that was it. And that was after that we did some sharp tail, which is like grouse hunting, and that was really cool. Had like all the dogs working them and stuff, and I'd never really done a lot of bird hunting. So yeah, that was like an awesome experience. Just wanted I could have kept hunting, but just sort of wanted to experience everything that was there. And got to actually sort of do some hunting with Michael and his dad, and then drove home that night and cleaned the stuff the next day and flew home.
That's crazy.
And, since then I've just wanted to do it all again, really. But that's the thing. The motel, I guess, like I said, and I wanted to sort of illustrate to people at the start, like finance wise, what did we say? $500 for a tag.
$7,300.
Yeah. And that's the thing. So like, if you include, I normally don't include food in the calculation because I figure you got to eat wherever you are, but backpack meals and stuff are a bit more expensive. But in that time, the other thing is motel rooms. They are a bit more expensive than Australia, where a room might cost you like $180 or 200 Australian a night, just because the exchange rate was pretty shit. But often those rooms include like 2 queen beds or like a queen and a single or whatever. So I mean, like, you could even sleep 3 guys or girls or whatever in one of those rooms. So that's like where a lot of the costs that I was hit with was
split 3 ways.
Well, yeah, like could be significantly less if split 3 ways, and also like I said, the flights could be a lot less if organised earlier. So that's where, you know, a lot of these hunts, yeah, I reckon you could easily do it for like $7.5 grand for like a 3-week or month hunt, and that's like living in and out of motel rooms, and obviously like going into the backcountry, or like even just sleeping, you know, in your tent or in your car and stuff. And yeah, like I mean, you can have a month-long hunting experience for something where people probably spend that much a year on piss.
Yeah, exactly.
And cigarettes. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? So for me, it's, super affordable hunt that, like we've sort of said a couple of times and joked about. I'm in Tasmania. I just took a new job down here. So I'll be pretty quiet probably on the socials next year, but just trying to sort of work that out for finance stuff. And I'll be back 2024, but even, next year when time's super limited for me, I'll definitely try and squeeze in probably 2 or 3 weeks again in the US. I mean, even if I don't have a tag, I'm sure Nick or Aiden, or I know Jack Crick was applying as well, but I'm sure someone I know will tag, and I'm more than happy to just go there and do it with them and share on the experience. And if not, like, I mean, honestly, I'd probably just go backpacking somewhere by myself. Like, if no one else wanted to come with me, it was like that much of a incredible experience that, like, I just want to, it was just, I can't. Oh, I just want to experience it again. Like, and anyone, I know you are the host, but we should probably wrap this up because I need to go to bed.
No, yeah, definitely I was about to.
Well, in that case, I'm going to wrap it up. It's responsibility.
You're the co-host, mate. Come on, do your job. You're only here every once in a while.
I was just going to say, like, if anyone, I mean, I know this has probably bounced all over the place and been a bit up and down and stuff, but if anyone is thinking about going to the US or has any questions or wants me to clarify anything or whatever, whether it be gear, like tags, I'd sort of say, like, it'd probably be worthwhile, like, doing a bit of your own research, just because I'm not that experienced and there is like a heap of different options in different states and different regs, and I wouldn't want to like point you in the wrong way, but I can certainly sort of help. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is, if I can help anyone in any way experience what I experienced, and if like one of you guys or girls get inspired enough to go and hunt anything in the US from this podcast, well, it was worthwhile us sitting here. So
definitely,
to
be honest, it's a very inspiring story. Like, just listening to it, and call us fucking Joe Rogan, because we've just done the longest podcast ever. 3 hours is what we've just ticked over at. But to be honest, like, every bit of that, I was like on the edge of my seat, although I'm standing. But it's like, it's been such a cool story to watch it. It's been awesome to watch it unfold when it all happened, but really cool to actually hear the full insights of it now. And we only touched the surface. We didn't even get that deep into it, considering you were there for 17 days and we talked about it for a few hours. But yeah, it's cool. I kind of felt the emotions along the way of it while you were going through it, like just talking about the stories. I think that's just it's obviously hat off to you for being able to tell a good story, but also just to be able to go through what you went through. Like, so many people would have hit the first 10 bumps in the road and said, "Oh, fuck it, I'm done." Whereas you just kept going. You're like, I'm here for a reason. And whether it was take one more step or whatever it was, take you 2 minutes to deal with what you have to deal with, and let's keep going. Like, it's inspiring to see that you just kept going and you just kept showing up. And like you said, it was a calculation of everything that you've accumulated before you that's now been able to help you over there, although it was a completely foreign space to you. Like, it's super cool. And I think realistically, for me, it just shows, okay, well, every year that you do more hunting, it's just going to get better and better and better.
Oh, 100%. Well, that's the thing. Like, I get so many messages, and like now, especially, it's sort of weird. Like, I'm starting to get messages being like guys like, "Oh, hey man, I've been following you for like 3 years, and I just want to let you know, like, I've just bought my first bow because I love what you do, and you've like just been a massive inspiration." And I'm like, that's incredible. Like, I'm like, and I'll just say to people, I'm like, you know, if there's the same thing. I was like, if there's any way that I can help you, like, just reach out. Or like, I'm not a gear nut, but I'm like, if you want to go hunting and do what that guy, like people have done for me, where it's like, hey, is this a moose shit or is this like a bear shit or what's this stuff? It's like, you're going to go out there and you're going to be in the same scenario in Australia and be like, is this a rub or is this a kangaroo or is this like a wombat or is this wombat shit? Is this pig shit? Is this koala shit? Is this possum shit? Is this, whatever. So it's like, if you need to send me 100 photos, I'll reply to you, man. If I'm like, sometimes I'm not in service, but it's like, I reply to every single message that I get on Instagram. I make, like, sometimes it might take me a day or two. Sometimes I might have a live export boat and it might take me 3 weeks. But it's like, I will reply to every single message that I get sent to me, right? Because in the way we're all in this together, we're all trying to learn, we're all trying to get better. So if I can help anyone, I'll definitely do it. But the thing that I was trying to get at is, no, sorry. I thought I was getting a call out, which would have been. But yeah, I mean, yeah, people. I lost what I was going to say. Oh no!
You built it up so big that it's disappeared.
Oh no! I just the on call. It was a bloody text message from. That's so frustrating. Sorry, I'm on. I don't know how, but I'm still at work technically. But yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is, if any, I'm going to listen to this again and be like, you did it.
I think really, like, maybe I might re-spark something, but you were talking about essentially the community helping each other, and like you only got so far essentially because you were able to call on other people, and I think it's really such a big thing within this space, and it's something I've used for a long time, is being able to call on everyone else and being able to message and ask those questions. But now that you've got it, go for it.
I know what I was going to say. I tell people, so I'm not a good archer, right? My archery skills, there are guys out there that will go and shoot with Ian Summers or Brad Murphy or do 3D or all that stuff, and they will kick my ass on a course. I'm not like, I don't tell people I'm a very good shot, and that's why I only shoot really roughly at the 30, 35 meters. But what generally dudes and guys and girls, when I say dudes, guys and girls can go and become a good shot in 6 months, and they will go out in the target. But nothing prepares you for having a screaming, bugling elk, running in and shooting at 16 meters like experience. Nothing teaches you how to read animal behavior and sign, and that's the thing that takes years. And so I get messages from guys going, hey, I've only been practicing for a month, but I've got a chance to go and hunt with a guide for sambar at a cheap rate because there's a free weekend. Should I go and do it? And I'm like, fuck yeah, do 3 weekends.
Yeah, 100%.
You know what I mean? Like, any way that you can upskill, like if you want to do it all off your own back, that's great. You'll learn, but you probably will learn. Like, I think, like if you go with a guide, and I'm not trying to pick myself up here, like we're not looking for work. We've got too much shit. So, but like
a different guide.
Yeah, like a different guide. But like, to go up and hunt with Kayuga Adventures, do their like bow hunting course school and stuff. Like go and hunt. I know Nick and Jack do weekends and stuff where they go boars and fallow and all, like everything. Like if you can hunt with experienced hunters, and they're just guys and girls that I know, like if you have mentors on Instagram, hunt with people that you have more experience than you. And like, that's the thing. I get people like, it's sort of like, especially right now, it's like I don't have that much time to hunt for myself personally. So this sounds a bit selfish, but when someone goes, hey, do you want to come hunt with me? If they go, yeah, come and hunt with me, and then go, oh, can we go and hunt on your property? It's sort of like, I don't even have enough time to hunt. Like, I'm happy to help you on social media, but like we talk about it all the time with the people I know, that it's like, if you want really good, if you've got a property, right, this sounds a bit selfish, but if you've got a property and you want someone to come and teach you how to hunt, invite them to your property. Like, don't expect someone in Australia to like get just taken out to like a place that they've found really hard. And then it's almost like taking someone who's got no experience in hunting and then like handicapping yourself on your own place. It's like, I'm happy to help people as much as I can, but it's also like, you've got to like, don't expect it just to be given to you. Like, you've still got to like do work, or like at least pay for it, or like get them, make it somehow beneficial to them as well. Because at the end of the day, like, they're taking their time out of their life to try and help you and teach you. But it's like, that also, like I'm just not going to take you on like I'm a hunting guide at the end of it as well. So I'm not going to just take you on a 4-day hunt on my property for when someone else will pay me money to do that. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's like, just think about that as well. Cause like I get some of those messages be like, oh, hey, can we go hunting on your place? And it's like, well,
I think that's just also a bit of a lesson for like people new into it. It's just not how you get access. Like it will never work for you. You can try it every day of the week and you will never get access.
Like I said, like it's just especially where I'm at in my life now. Like I probably don't even, like in this next period, I'm not gonna have enough time to hunt for myself, let alone like even see my family or like hunt with my family and my close mates and stuff. So it's like, I probably at this stage, like that's for me, like I'll just be like, hey, just send me a heap of messages on Instagram, like I'll help you as much as I can or whatever. But yeah, I just don't have the time to like physically take people out, and especially like it's more, that wasn't generically talking about me. That was more just like I talked a lot of guys about it, and like like people would be like, hey, I'm just new to hunting, like can I come hunting with you and hunt on your place? And it's like, well, it's taken me like 28 years of me and my dad and my family of like accumulating these properties. So it's like, yes, I do want to help you out as much as I can, but it's also like, well,
how much of the food off our own table can we give you?
Oh, sort of. You've sort of got to look after stuff too. But I mean, get out. Like my advice, we're going a long way around this, but worry about how to shoot a bow. Worry about equally as much, if not more, how to read sign and animal behavior, and what they're doing, when, and why. Like think about the why. You know what I mean? Like I said. So that's probably all I'd add to it, because it means that you can just like you can take facets from every environment and every species and turn it into different hunting styles and techniques, and hopefully find some success for yourself. But this is your host, James Doumtsis, wrapping up.
I was just trying to find your handle. So it's at James Doumtsis Outdoors. Make sure you check him out. I'm sure you're already following him if you've listened to the podcast many times before. But James, thank you for taking the time out, dude. I do really appreciate it. I really appreciate, especially after the big ass day you've had to sit down and explain it to not only me, but obviously for all the listeners as well. We appreciate you, dude, and our platform's always your platform. You know it. Co-host.
Thank you. That's all I wanted to hear, mate. That's reward enough. No, thank you very much. And if you got to this point and listened to my absolute dribble of probably spastic conversation, thanks for taking the time to listen, and hope you got something out of it. So cheers.
That wraps up this week's episode. Thank you so much for joining us, team. If you did have any topics, questions, or you wanted to suggest a guest for Becoming a Bowhunter, you can send me an email at matty@becomingabowhunter.com. If you are enjoying the show or you've enjoyed in particular episodes, please do me a solid and share it around with your friends. If you are not already, please hit the subscribe button, as the more subscribers we get, the higher the podcast gets ranked, and that definitely helps out for showing it to other individuals. If you are not already following me on Instagram, it's at becomingabowhunter.podcast, and on YouTube, it's Becoming a Bowhunter. Get out, team, fling some arrows, get that practice in, and walk those yards in the paddocks until you find those critters. That is it for now, but not the last time that you'll hear from Becoming a Bowhunter.